What's up, guys? Welcome back to Waking Up with West, episode 3. Today we have our first guest on the podcast/show, Cole, otherwise known as the founder of Rip City Rundown, who you see him every Wednesday afternoons, or I guess technically mornings for y'all out on the West Coast. He is going to join us today for some football talk. We're going to be talking about the Ducks. We're going to be talking about the college football landscape as a whole. We're going to be talking about the NFL, some NFL playoff prediction things, and then stay to the end, because if you want to make coin this weekend, we'll be giving you our betting picks. I briefly did that in episode 2. If you are a watcher of the show and you stayed until then, you saw that I took Ole Miss with the points last week. We don't need to go back and revisit that. Cole, I want to start off with this. How are you? It's a new show, same channel. How are you feeling?
I'm just excited to talk football.
To not talk about the Blazers.
That's really the point. I'm excited to not talk about the Blazers. And more so, just excited to talk football. It's that time of year where football is king. And especially with the Ducks playing well, the Ducks have a chance to go to the Pac-12 championship and honestly possibly to the national championship, to the playoff. I'm excited to talk about them. Bo Nix is now the betting favorite to win the Heisman, so that's a fun thing for us Ducks fans. And we'll briefly, are we going to discuss a little bit of the Arizona State game? We have those demons back from 2019 and Jaden Daniels, but I'm excited for this week. Right? Brandon Ayuk, and there's some other NFL talent on that team too, if I remember.
Yeah, that's where I wanted to start, is Oregon, because right now for sports fans in the greater Oregon area, I would say the Blazers are not on the forefront of our minds. It would be Oregon and Oregon State. Both teams will obviously play this week, and I was going to say both teams have big games. Depends on what you define as big game. Oregon has to go to Arizona State, Tempe, Arizona. Oregon is 23.5-point favorites. Oregon should take care of business here. Do you think this is a sneaky trap game, though?
I think in all of Oregon's history, this is trap game written all over it. I mean, like I said, we saw it in 2019. But I don't know if this is just me drinking the Kool-Aid from these behind-the-scenes videos, but Dan Lanning seems like he's the best motivator in college football right now. And I have a hard time seeing Oregon not winning and probably covering the spread. Arizona State's not a good football team. However, they did hold Washington to not an offensive touchdown.
Yeah, I think Washington beat them like 15-8 on
that was the biggest upset watch of the year so far for Washington, who has a huge game this week against Oregon State.
Yeah, we'll touch on that in a quick second. The reason why I don't think this is a trap game, and you mentioned it, maybe drinking the Kool-Aid with the behind-the-scenes videos, but Bo Nix is, like you said, the betting favorite for the Heisman. And honestly, that Bo Nix, Michael Penix are the two guys probably leading the charge with Jaden Daniels. So this is kind of a perfect segue with Jaden Daniels playing at Arizona State and Bo Nix at Oregon, Michael Penix at Washington. Do you think that, if we can just get in the Heisman watch here, my first question, just the Heisman doesn't, the conference championships will play and then the Heisman will be given.
Yes.
So
now, technically I'm pretty sure, I don't know if they've already sent them out or if they are sending them out after this week or after the next week, but they send their ballots out, they allow you to vote before the conference championship.
Why would they do that?
Because college football's stupid.
Yeah.
So most people wait until after, but some don't because they're just lazy.
My prediction is that I think the winner of that Pac-12 championship game, in theory, if it's Oregon-Washington, whoever wins that quarterback will win the Heisman. I know Jaden Daniels is doing his thing, and I know that in the past, record hasn't necessarily been the number one determining factor, as it shouldn't. Your stats matter a ton. But, Bo Nix, personally, I think Penix has the inside track. But Bo Nix in the past, his game against USC was just
I think I think the reason Bo Nix is the betting favorite right now is because, A, they have a better chance of winning the Pac-12 right now because Oregon State is the favorite this week against Washington.
They are.
Washington isn't even projected to go to the Pac, or not go, but go in as an undefeated team.
For the ESPN analytics, they have less of a chance to go to the playoff than Oregon, which is interesting.
And then when it comes to Jaden Daniels, he's not going to get that extra game in conference championship weekend. However, his stats this year, I didn't even realize it. He just threw for 300 and ran for 200 last week. He might go 4K, 1K, which is insane.
Ridiculous.
I think in the past, everyone that's done that has won the Heisman. For some reason, just Jaden Daniels doesn't seem like a Heisman guy.
I just think it's
Bo Nix, really.
Right, but I don't know. I feel like the Heisman is such a big part of winning the Heisman is your narrative throughout the year.
Yeah,
and Jaden Daniels just doesn't. He did have the narrative, but that opening night just getting destroyed by Florida State, I think just really put him in a hole. He could still win. But speaking of Penix, because we were just talking about him in Bonix, like you said, Oregon State is favored,
which is crazy,
at home against Washington. If you're an Oregon State fan, yes, you have 2 losses. Sure, you're probably conjecturing really crazy ways for you to make the playoff. But you kind of like your season is this week and next week, Washington, Oregon. Because if you win both, I believe they're going to the Pac-12 championship.
They're going to the Pac-12 championship for sure.
Even though they're
going to be a top 10 team. They're going to be going to the Rose Bowl if they win the Pac-12, obviously, because they're probably not making the playoff. But take all that aside, imagine how sweet it would be for Oregon State in the final year of the Pac-12. You and Washington State are the 2 Pac-12 teams left, and you take out Washington and Oregon, 2 teams that are leading the Pac-12.
Well,
2 teams that were one of the first to leave the Pac-12.
They're not beating both. But
Oregon State, I think, is the perfect team to upset teams like this because they play with defense. They've got a great running game. I think they are obviously. Oregon is a better team. Oregon has more flash, but they match up well with Oregon in terms of like in the trenches, and that's why I think they are favored against Washington. Not only are they home, but they're also kind of that team that has slowed Washington down so far this year similarly.
Well, Oregon State dropped to Washington State before Washington State went on their massive slide.
Who did they lose to?
That's a good question. They lost to...
it wasn't Utah because they beat Utah.
No.
Was it? It might have been UCLA.
That sounds right, actually. I believe they lost UCLA, but I'll fact check that quick as I was going to make my point, is that Washington is, to me, the offensive... it was Washington State, and they lost to Arizona, who, by the way, is ranked. But
that's right.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Because if they don't lose to Arizona, they are firmly in the conference
100%.
Or in the college football playoff
100%.
race.
But I don't know. I think like you have Washington... This Washington-Oregon State game this week is like a clash of styles, where Washington is very like offensive focused. They do play defense, but it's not like they're like USC or anything. But like Washington,
they're pretty bad at defense.
Yeah. Whereas Oregon State is more of like I went to Clemson. I saw DJ Uiagalelei firsthand. He's not the most explosive quarterback. So that's just a clash of styles. And then of course you got to bake in a couple points for Oregon State being at home. Which brings me to my point, though. The reason why I'm picking Oregon to win the Pac-12 is I think Oregon is just like the just right version of like they're just the most balanced team in the Pac-12. And we have a coach who just like I could be so wrong this weekend against Arizona State, but Dan Lanning to me seems like he's got his message across, and there will be no letdowns because I don't know, they compare themselves to Oregon. They don't compare themselves to everyone else.
Yeah, and we're going to assume that Washington will be going to the Pac-12 championship, and it's just really hard to beat a team twice. Especially, and this isn't like Georgia and Tennessee, where there's clearly a gap, even though they're still both ranked. This is, if Dan Lanning kicks a couple field goals, or if they get 1 4th down conversion, we're talking Oregon's winning that game, and Oregon's probably a top 4 team in the country right now. So
no, I agree. I think, and
I just hope it gets to that.
I know, and you saw the committee reward Oregon by being the top 1-loss team, which is where I want to go to next before we close out the college football talk. Here is the national picture. What are your thoughts for the general audience, not just for Pac-12 fans, of Oregon being ahead of Texas and Bama?
I think it's really interesting because I think that there are great arguments for specifically Texas being over Oregon and even Alabama being over Oregon, because up until now, if you just want to go based just solely off a resume, they probably have better resumes. But I also think that I view teams as like, I almost view Colorado as a ranked win for Oregon. Even though Colorado's 4-6 now, if Colorado doesn't lose to Oregon, their season could be completely different. I think it matters when you beat them and where they are when you beat them.
I agree.
I also think it matters how you're playing right now. So that's why I think Alabama is nowhere near the team they were when they barely beat USF in Week 3. I think it's really hard. I think they have them ranked correctly. I think it's going to be a really hard conversation if all 3 of those teams end up winning out.
Well, you got to think, if Bama beats Georgia, Bama's in for sure, because that win is ridiculous. Insane.
See, this is the thing though. If you're going to get your Big 12 undefeated, or not Big 12, your Big 10 undefeated team.
Well, I think Oregon I'm an Oregon fan, so it's hard to not be biased, but I think like if you're talking about undefeated Big 10 champion and then like 1-loss Pac-12, loss, but undefeated Florida State.
Yeah, you got Florida State and you got the Big 10 champion in, and then your 3 teams left are
the current
Pac-12, Oregon.
What I asked,
you have to put Texas over Alabama because they
but
beat them.
that's the question. Is like head-to-head matters for sure, but
Because then
I just don't know. It really depends on how Texas does it, in my opinion, because Texas needed one of the worst spots by a ref I've ever seen to beat Houston.
No, I know.
That was terrible.
But
They're with Wyoming in the fourth quarter.
The message you send if you don't put Texas in over Alabama
I agree.
is because just means, like, why would you ever play a good team ever in non-conference?
I agree, but I don't know.
That's why it's scary for Oregon, because I know they're going to want to put Alabama in if it gets to that, and if they put Alabama in, they have to put Texas.
Might have to root for Georgia.
So I don't think that's what's going to happen, because either someone's going to lose, whether it's Alabama, whether it's Texas, whether it's Florida State.
Florida State's in a precarious position, for sure.
Gross.
Florida State's got to. I think Florida State could definitely lose to Florida. That's kind of my hot take.
I think Texas loses the game down the stretch. Honestly,
probably
too.
Texas has not looked great. Moving on to Texas, but the NFL version. As a Panthers fan, how do you feel about C.J. Stroud being the getting MVP talk?
I hate talking about this because I love Bryce Young. I'm going to support him. He's in a terrible situation. Rookie quarterbacks aren't supposed to be good. Shout
out David Tepper, one of the worst owners in the league.
We're not getting on a tangent about David Tepper here. Speaking of David Tepper, I ran into someone that works for David Tepper. Yeah,
I heard that
they were talking about how bad David Tepper is, from the inside.
Anywho, that was
C.J. Stroud.
C.J. Stroud. Stroud's.
I wanted C.J. Stroud from the jump. I think he's a great quarterback. I think that I loved him at Ohio State. He almost single-handedly beat Georgia in that playoff game. The whole MVP thing, I guess you could I think the whole MVP conversation with him is valid because this team is practically the same as last year, and they are now a 5-4 team with C.J. Stroud, even though they are the same. Sure, you could take.
Well, it's funny because Bryce Young's one win is over C.J. Stroud, which is the funny
Bryce Young
thing.
sucks right now.
Yeah,
that's a.
But from one quarterback to another, Deshaun Watson out for the year, which is tough. Again, Clemson grad here, big Deshaun Watson guy. Prior to big college Deshaun Watson guy,
I still like Deshaun.
I still like him, but he's made his mistakes for sure. First, your reaction to the news. I know you're a big Deshaun Watson guy. The second half of my question is Pittsburgh plays Cleveland this week in a division that is definitely the best in football.
Yeah. As we're recording this, or the night we're recording
the
this,
Ravens will play the Bengals tonight.
Which is kind of must-win for the Bengals at this point.
Pittsburgh
is so gross. Pittsburgh is so gross. I love it, though. They haven't outgained an opponent once this year.
I love it.
I love Cleveland, too, because that defense, they've been racking up the points for me in fantasy.
It's funny because Baltimore and Cincinnati are just more aesthetically pleasing teams and, frankly, just flat-out better teams. But Pittsburgh has one of the best coaches in the league, and they play defense, and then Cleveland's defense is like Myles Garrett's just ridiculous. And like Jerome Ford.
Cleveland's not even starting P.J. Walker this week. They're starting DTR, Dorian Thompson-Robinson, which is so weird.
Pac-12 guy.
Imagine if they still had Dobbs, who was their backup
in the
preseason.
So, yeah, you're taking Pitt or Cleveland on that game?
I'm taking Cleveland.
Well, I'm not going to look at the number yet because we'll do that later, but you think Cleveland wins?
I'm taking Cleveland Browns.
Okay.
As Lil Pick'em says, give me the Browns.
Yeah. What are your thoughts on Aaron Rodgers saying he's coming back?
I think this is exactly what he's doing. Aaron Rodgers is saying he's coming back, but he knows the Jets are, by the time he's supposed to come back, the Jets are going to be 4-8 or 5-7 or 5-8.
I want him to
succeed. Then he's going to say, well, there's no point in coming back. Even though I could, there's no point, so I'm not going to do it. But I could prove to you that my science is good. Maybe he could come back. I don't know.
Jets Bills this weekend. Though.
Jets are weird. Bills have to win.
Bills got to win. Bills are
just the weirdest team in the NFL.
I don't even think I care what the number is. I think I'm betting. No, I'm not. If it's definitely going to be more than a touchdown.
We'll at Bills, Zach Wilson.
Eagles Chiefs, a preview of the Super Bowl.
That's fun.
That's a good matchup as well. Honestly, the week before Thanksgiving, I get a little I don't know. College football is really in the do or die stage of
I'm
still first of all, your team and my team have been cooked since the opening game of the season.
Yeah.
So, Giants fan here.
Once we went to
we'll
1-8, that's when I kind of
you were talking about how y'all were going to run the table at 1-5, which is funny, but I don't know. The NFL to me, outside of my fantasy football hopes, is taking a backseat to college this weekend because. Especially in the final year of the Pac-12, man. I said it'd be so cool if Bo Nix won a title for the Pac-12 in the final year against an SEC defense like Georgia.
Not only Georgia, but the team that he got smacked by in his first game.
And the team that Dan Lanning came from.
The script is poetry. The script. I've been a Bo Nix guy since he was at Auburn. I liked him even when he beat Oregon in 2019.
Yeah.
But
Okay.
Moving on.
Moving on back to college football. This is what you guys have been waiting for. These are our betting picks. Quite frankly, guys, we're just kind of going to go with the gut here. I mean, I can give you like a couple.
That's what I do when I actually put real money on it anyway. So.
Well, I mean, we're doing this Thursday, so, injury reports aren't finalized. So
lines are moving.
Lines will be moving. But regardless, we're going to go through the ranked games in college football, at least most of them. At least the good ones. So we're not going to be doing Chattanooga at Alabama. I don't even think that's a spread. Let's start off with my Clemson Tigers. Do you think they win by a touchdown at home against UNC?
6.5.
We're minus 6.5 against UNC, who's 8-2. But those two losses might be the worst in college football.
UNC is really gross. I think they're not that well coached.
A touchdown, no. I honestly, you can say like no bet. Like, I'm not betting this game.
Yeah, I'm staying away from this game.
Definitely not.
But if I was to lean, I'm leaning Clemson.
I'd probably hope that maybe like UNC jumps early and get Clemson live like minus 3 or something.
I don't think UNC's ever been a good team this year, unfortunately.
Yeah.
As much as they like Drake, man.
Clemson is 6-4. We became bowl eligible at least. Okay, here the game here. Oregon 23.5 at Arizona State.
Hammering the piss out of Oregon.
Wow. Win by 24.
Oregon, I don't care if we're on the road. Oregon has me reeled.
It's just a weird game because I feel like they've been so dominant recently that maybe like a lot of people are going to take Oregon, and I think this is a game where like Oregon like dominates, but for some reason they win by like 21 or something.
But I think the exact things we're saying about how Arizona State did this to you guys 4 years ago is exactly what Dan Lanning's saying, and
I agree.
He's not.
No, I agree. I think Oregon is
in
going
the
to
world
smoke them. Oregon's going to smoke them. I just think it could be like a funky backdoor cover, lose by 22 or something. I'm not betting that game. Nor am I betting the Michigan game. We're not going to talk about that. They're scumbags. They cheat. Bama against Chattanooga, no thanks. Louisville is probably the most team with the most improbable chance, but still have a chance to make the playoff. If you get what I'm saying.
They shouldn't have lost. They lost to Pitt.
Yeah, they lost to Pitt, who plays tonight. Which, by the way, I'm taking Boston College to win that game. Louisville at Miami, at Hard Rock. Miami -1.
I'm staying away from this game.
I'm staying away, but if I would, I'm betting Miami. Because why would people, they'd see a 10 and just bet Louisville? Like, there's a reason why Miami's favored.
Take the under. That screams terrible offenses.
46.5 is the over-under there. Utah, Arizona. Arizona's an interesting. They're both 7-3. Arizona's 5-2 in the conference. Shout out the Wildcats there. They're -1. Utah, of course, no Cam Rising. I'm honestly probably betting Arizona in that game. I might actually bet Arizona in that game.
I think if I had to lean, I'm leaning Utah. I think Arizona's a little higher than the talent-wise they should be. I mean, that quarterback they have at Fitia. Yeah. He's been playing really well ever since he starting this year.
You remember Delora or whatever?
Yeah, no, he was the starter to start this year.
I know. That's what I was saying. I was like, what happened to him? Must have gotten hurt.
I am leaning Utah in that game, but that's not a firm lean.
Yeah. Georgia at Tennessee. Georgia is -10 at Tennessee.
Give me Georgia all the way.
Yeah,
Tennessee is dead. They just
honestly
got smacked by Missouri.
This could be like a Vegas trap line, but I will pay to lose that game because Georgia just came off just
Tennessee
destroying Ole Miss.
Tennessee stinks.
I know. You know what's annoying is like Missouri's number 9 in the country. Like, we're just propping up Bama and Georgia at this point for wins.
Missouri's pretty good.
I threw in this game just because I wanted to see if you have the balls to bet the under in the Illinois-Iowa game. I am. It's 31.5.
No.
I'm betting the under. The final score there is going to be a 17-6 Iowa win. I'm not kidding. Iowa can't score an offensive touchdown. They're going to win the Big Ten West. Yeah, Big Ten West. And go on and be 27.5-point dogs in a title game.
Gross.
Kansas State, Kansas, don't quite care, although I think Kansas State, actually, I think after losing to Texas, I don't think they can go to the Big 12
Kansas could have until they lost last week.
Let me see, because I know that Oklahoma has 2 conference losses now.
It might be Oklahoma State could go.
Oklahoma State's there. Yeah, there's weird ties, but this Kansas State still has a lot to play for. They're -9.5 on the road. Won't be betting that game.
Ooh.
Probably lean Kansas though. It's
not a big enough matchup. Not a good enough
game.
line.
Yeah, this is the one I want to see what you're going with. Washington underdogs in Corvallis. 7:30 4:30 local time
This
kick.
is unfortunate.
But this is why why the Pac-12 is going away, by the way, is so they can have primetime games.
Yeah.
Oregon State -1. Who are you taking, bro? It's actually crazy that
this is the biggest game in Corvallis in what has to be like a decade.
I think I'm betting Oregon State, dude.
I
think I'm taking Oregon State.
I want Washington to win because I think that's best for Oregon if Washington wins.
But also, like, Oregon State's going to be, like, number 8 in the nation for us next week.
Yes, but I think the whole, like, avenging the Washington loss and giving them their one loss is the best way. I think if you just go chalk the rest of the way and Oregon wins, that's your best way to get in.
Mm-hmm.
But I think...
It's hard to bet against Washington.
I think Oregon State wins this game.
I think
I really
they do as well.
I really think they do. I'm not sure I'm going to bet it because I'm not going to want to get emotionally invested in Oregon State when I'm not really sure who I actually want to win. But
I'm curious.
Oregon State is
right. It's hard to bet against something you don't really, or hard to bet for something you don't really want to happen. Just for random purpose.
You want to know what's actually a great game this week?
You betting the under? 62.5.
I'm staying away from that.
Okay.
But maybe the under. Iowa State, Texas. I think Iowa State beats Texas this weekend.
Texas -7.5.
Iowa State.
That's such an interesting line because I feel like they want you to bet Texas there. They want you to like buy a point and take -6.5.
Quinn Ewers is coming back. I think he's a very overrated quarterback.
Dang.
I think Iowa State at home is a scary good team. I mean, they start off the year terrible, but they're 5-2 in the
Brock
Big
Purdy
12.
stomping grounds.
There's going to be a huge. We have yet to see like the big top 4, top 6 team go down to an unranked team. That's gonna happen at some point. It happens every year. It's Texas right now.
It could happen in Tempe.
It's Texas.
Hope not. Moving along to the NFL. First game we're gonna do is the Bengals Ravens are in an hour and a half, more or less. Who are you taking in this game? So when people see this and it's the first bet and you get it right, then they'll tell you for Sunday. I think I'm taking the points with Cincinnati +3.5.
I'm either taking
take Baltimore.
I'm either taking Baltimore
Or the over.
Hart says over. Primetime unders always hit.
They're like hitting at like a 76% clip.
Give me the over.
Okay, taking the over there. Let's go. Let's just do our 3 favorites here. Steelers Browns.
Give me Browns.
Winning. I got Browns as well.
Browns are smoking.
With DTR starting.
Browns. Steelers aren't good.
You know Mike Tomlin's record.
Under is 32.5.
That's
wow,
insane.
An NFL game is crazy.
I love that. I'm starting the Browns defense in fantasy. You know Mike Tomlin's record as a underdog on the road. Okay, he does not care. Probably thinking the Browns as well. Let's do Jets Bills. Bills touchdown favorite.
Give me Bills. Give me Bills to put up like 30 this week on that Jets defense.
Yeah, I think I'm going Bills too. And then Vikings-Broncos on Sunday night. Broncos -2.5.
Broncos have been getting hot recently.
But it's Dobbs. I feel like the Vikings are kind of this darling team that are due for a letdown spot.
Yeah, exactly. And who else to do it than let's ride? I think the Broncos
at home
win.
in probably some bad weather.
I think the Broncos win, go to 5-5, and that playoff juice is starting to form.
Let's ride gets cringe again.
I don't know.
Eagles Chiefs. Eagles Chiefs last game. KC -2.5 at home. That's just literally the perfect line because it's like, can you justify taking they just got to win by a field goal? I think I'm taking the Eagles actually.
Chiefs has owned.
I think Eagles win that
Andy
game.
Reid has owned the Eagles since
even though
he went to the Chiefs. And Kelsey's going to perform in front of Taylor.
You think she'll be there? We got to see if she has a show that night.
I think she will.
Well, thank you guys for watching. That was episode 3. Hopefully you guys enjoyed it. Hopefully you guys liked having Cole on the show. Do you think I should try to go get Cody?
Depends on what you're talking about.
It's weird because we're just the time zone's different.
Depends on
maybe
what you're
I'll bring on
talking
Cody.
about.
He can talk about the business of TikTok. By the way, you want to plug it?
If you're not following our TikTok, or if you're not subscribed to our YouTube and you like YouTube Shorts, go ahead and check all that stuff out. We're doing a lot of short-term trivia, quick 1-2 minute videos on our TikTok, and I think you guys would enjoy it.
Yeah, I know. I enjoy watching it because it's funny.
Same.
And it's informative. Thank you guys for watching. I'll see you guys episode 4 at the beginning of next week. Peace.